Okay, welcome back to Return to Yehovah. Now we're going to continue with what will be part 2 of things you should know and believe. As a Christian or as a follower of Yeshua, I'm pointing out some things you should believe and know about so you can tell the difference between true Christianity, biblical Christianity, and whatever else might be out there in other denominations, or when other religions try to compare to us. You'll have an idea, what do we believe and what do they believe, so you can tell the difference. This is to help people not be deceived, okay? Now, the first part, we covered 3 out of 10 of my points that I wanted to make, and I took them all, or virtually all, out of the epistles of John the Apostle, okay? Now, this is number 4. Yeshua, Jesus, died on the cross to take away our sins. In other words, he paid the penalty of death for us. Now it says in 1 John 4:10, so chapter 4, verse 10. Oh, okay. I purposely gave 2 versions, and you'll see why. It says, "In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins." Now, I looked at about 10 different versions of the Bible and New Testament, and almost all of them use the same word, and I forget what the other word they use for propitiation, which I don't know about you, but in here we are, the year 2017, I don't know anybody that uses that word. You probably only hear it in church or maybe a Bible school, but every time I hear that, I just kind of cringe. It's like there's got to be something better that explains it for us simple people nowadays. So one of the versions I found that I thought explained it pretty good is called Weymouths New Testament. So some guy named Weymouth years ago did his own version, or I guess you'd say a version of the New Testament, and compare how he translated it to what they had, and it helps, I think. It says, again, it's still 1 John 4:10, "This is love indeed. We did not love God, but he loved us and sent his Son to be an atoning sacrifice for our sins." Okay, so bottom line is, Jesus died to take away our sins. He took our penalty so we didn't have to, basically. Now, here's another place where I wanted to include a couple other verses, all from the book of Romans, just to kind of hammer home this point, because this is a big deal. You need to know that. There's no question that the Bible teaches that Yeshua died on the cross to take away our sins, okay? Romans 5, verse 6 says, "For when we were still without strength, in due time, Christ or Messiah died for the ungodly." I mean, that's a huge thing, that all of us were considered ungodly. We weren't doing God's ways and didn't really care about God at all. And yet, we also didn't have any strength that we could do anything about our situation. But while we were without strength, in due time, or in God's perfect timing, Jesus died for the ungodly. Now, Romans chapter 5, verse 8, just a couple verses down, said, "But God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Again, reinforcing this point here. And then the last one, Romans 5:10, "For if, when we were enemies to God, we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son, much more, having been reconciled, we shall be saved by his life." But the point of that verse is that while we were God's enemies, right? That's how God saw us. He brought us back to him, or corrected, the problem between us, reconciled us by the death of his Son. All right, number 5 of the 10 that I want to cover. Things you should know and believe. Number 5, Yeshua came in the flesh. Now, I couldn't think of any denominations, they're probably out there, or other religions that would, at least nowadays, would say, wow, that Jesus never lived, or that's fairy tale or fantasy or whatever. If you ever come across that, guess what? The Bible's got an answer for it. And that's one thing about God. He knows things that the enemy has already thought of. And when the enemy tries to trick us into, believing something that's bogus, God's already got the answer in the Bible. So, Yeshua came in the flesh. In the flesh. That's the point you need to get. 1 John chapter 4, verse 2 says, "By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God." So whether it's a spirit speaking through a person that claims to be a medium or a prophet or whatever, if the spirit that speaks through them will actually confess that Jesus Christ actually came in the flesh, then that spirit or voice or whatever you want to call it is of God. 1 John 4:3 says, "And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world." One other, this is out of 2 John 1:7. "For many deceivers have gone out into the world, who do not confess Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist." So even 2,000 years ago, John knew that an antichrist was coming, and here we are. People are talking about it a lot today, not that we know who it is, but some have said we think it's this guy or that lady or whatever. But don't be surprised if one of the many things the enemy tries to do is to tell us that Yeshua never came in the flesh, or that Jesus didn't actually live like we're told. So, I'm going to stop there for now, and we'll go on. We'll do part 3 next. We'll take that up with point number 6. All right, thanks.